everybody, and welcome to the Connections with Cass podcast. My name is Cass, and I am your host, and I'm super excited to be starting our second season today. Technically, this will be our 16th episode, but the first episode of the second season, and it is on defining success. So let's get into it. In this episode, we're going to be talking about success. What is success? How to be successful in this life? There are many definitions of success, and I think every single one of us is going to have a different version of success based on what our soul is here to experience. But at the end of the day, we often are achieving or seeking to achieve these external things: money, recognition, power, and all the stuff that seemingly will give us stability and a sense of fulfillment within, but oftentimes ends up giving us completely the opposite. So let's get into it. Success is the ability to feel fulfilled and productive and balanced and at peace within collectively. I think for every single person on this earth at some level, we want to feel balanced, at peace, stable, and like we're doing it right in this life. Now, that being said, each of our souls is very unique. I think there's something to be said about how each of us is led into our quote unquote success from an evolutionary standpoint of our soul through the universe's nudges, through our intuition, through God's plan for us that is fated or destined for us to follow. We talk about this a lot, where we all have a plan. How we live out that plan, how we live out those lessons is largely determined by our free will, but we are co-creators in our existence with God or the universe. So we have this plan that is laid out. How we navigate it is often based largely on our choices that we make in life. So when we look at success, each of us is going to have a very different version of that. How much our soul evolves, I believe, into a state of oneness or love is truly the end all be all for a universal perspective of success. And typically, if you are actively working towards that and moving through those inner wounds and traumas and all of the things that hold you back from living your life in the light, your energetic vibration raises and you are calling in more positive experiences. But positive experiences can be very different for each person. One person's positive experience might be having this beautiful family with a median amount of money where they're comfortable, but there's so much love and 5 kids and they always wanted kids. And that was what their soul came here to do. And that is success for their soul. Whereas another person might be working through, barriers of self-confidence and self-worth and really actually need to push through different barriers to attain success and recognition from an external standpoint, but not to attain the money or the power, but to move through the blocks internally. And so their success in their career and becoming, like a famous speaker or actor, that is something that, yes, it achieves things externally that are very tangible to see, but it's also that their soul is evolving through that. And the universe or God is constantly nudging us or providing this plan for us to be in alignment to, and providing us signs and energy and knowings internally of where we should be going and what we should be doing in order to follow this plan in the most high vibrational way. But a lot of times we ignore it. And lucky for us, or unlucky for us, God or the universe can come in and kind of, shake things up a bit in order for us to get back on the right track and remember what true success is. And so for me, at my spiritual awakening, like I was talking about, I got to a point where I broke down to nothing. I've talked about this many times in past episodes, where it was like everything came crashing down at once. And it's because I had been ignoring a lot of this. Like, I was aware of the signs. I was starting to gently start to meditate and dip my toes into spirituality and stuff, but I wasn't fully ready to commit to a completely new life. And so the universe or God said, yes, you are, and brought me down to nothing, made me go through an extremely traumatic experience. And perhaps I co-created that experience, in a sense for my, with choices that I made and things like that. But it was all by design to allow me to come down into nothing, to feel who I really was and grow from there again. And that's success. Like, I think of that moment where I sat on my living room floor asking for help as probably the most genuinely successful moment of my life. To admit that there was something more, to admit that I needed help, to admit that I was not living a good life. I had chose to live out of alignment, to admit that, to surrender to that, and to ask for help, and to truly believe in my heart that there's got to be something that can help me. That is success for me. And I think it's one of my major life lessons that my soul is here to learn and evolve from, is that you're never alone, no matter how dark things get, and that light can always be found in the dark places, which is largely what this podcast is about. But not everyone is going to experience that kind of moment and define it as success in their life, right? So everybody is going to be a little bit different, but collectively, we're moving through the lessons and we're evolving from the lessons, and we're finding peace, fulfillment, and balance within as we move through those lessons. We're finding inspiration. We're finding our spark, and we're sharing that spark with the world. I might have even more profound or successful moments in my life moving forward that I can look back on and say, wow, like that's where I felt truly successful. I'm sure there will be, but that just goes to show that our lives are not linear and our lives are always changing. And even with, things like my spiritual gifts or my understandings of these spiritual concepts or the understandings of the universe or mediumship that I have, they're always evolving because my soul is always evolving. That's the whole point. And I think being able to recognize that, things are going to change in our lives, even moments of success will change in our life, but moments of failure will change in our lives too. My greatest failure might not have happened yet, God forbid, but it might not have happened yet. And, to not let that scare us and to not have too many expectations either, because I think with success as well, we'll reach pinnacles in life and we'll feel like we've attained it. And then what? Now what do we do? You raised all these kids. Now they're moving out of the house. Who am I? What am I? What do I do? And that's where you have to understand yourself within, and your self-worth and your light within has to be equally as important as the external things that you are doing, including raising your kids, including the jobs that you have and all of those things. And you have to have hobbies. You have to have these exciting things to bring spark and life back into your life in order to navigate the ever-changing landscape that life is, and to recognize that all quote unquote failures are meant to be a part of our path too, providing that we learn from them. They are our greatest teachers, and success can only come, true success, internal success, alignment can only come when we honor those failures as teaching moments and we truly transform through them. So if you're in a place where you're like having maybe glimmers of success in your day-to-day life, and or you've reached these pinnacles in your life but it hasn't felt quite right, honor the success that it was for your soul to be at that point and allow there to be room to grow. Not that you have to chase into another moment of success, but just allow yourself to flow into that next space. And when you're there, feel the gratitude, the alignment, and the truth of who you are in that experience. I often feel like the success that our own individual souls are here to achieve is typically represented in the challenges that we've gone through. So whatever's been the hardest thing in your life is typically where we're meant to grow or evolve the most, and where we can find the most light and the most truth in the processing of that experience into the embodiment of our light. So if being a mom has been really hard for you and different than you expected, perhaps, or maybe you have regrets from the past from, things that you did as a mother, at this stage in your life, this is where you work on that. This is where you transform from that. This is where you evolve from that. This is where you open your heart to love in a different way. Or perhaps you've always struggled with self-worth or self-confidence, like we were talking about before, because your parents just always just said you weren't good enough. That is where you are meant to transform. And no matter how long it's been, or no matter how many things have happened, use that as the catalyst to step into your success, rather than fearing thinking about it, rather than having resentment about what has happened. Like, use it to fuel your desire to come into alignment and to triumph over the adversity that you've been through. And a lot of times I think when we're broken down to nothing, like I was, we go through a dark night of the soul. Those are moments where we recognize that and the wisdom that has come from the darker experiences that we've had. But I know even in the stage of life that I am now, sometimes I can forget kind of where I'm at or why I'm here. And it's weird because I talk about it all the time, but when you're very distant from those darker experiences, you can become a little bit more, I don't know if it's like numb to the different things you've been through and the success that you've had, but you just become a little bit blind to it, I guess. And usually it takes some sort of traumatic event to really bring us back into reality. But what I do for myself is I kind of consciously recognize, where I've been, what success means to me and how to step into that as I move forward without ignoring what I've been through in the past, with honoring what I've been through the past and deeply allowing it to resonate within my soul, not in terms of like, I need to go back into those dark places and embody that darkness, but just reflect on where I've come from, where I'm going, and where my soul is in alignment from those experiences. I think becoming comfortable in the uncomfortable is also an aspect of success. This life that we live, I've talked about this a lot on this podcast, this life that we live, we are constantly trying to numb out the uncomfortable feelings that we have in our relationships, in our day-to-day lives, in our work, whatever it may be. There's always something to take, something to do to get your mind off of it. And the best thing that we can do for ourselves is become comfortable in the uncomfortable feelings. And that gives you the foundation to have success and peace and alignment within as well, meaning that we have different experiences, different lessons, and different ways of living that we're meant to experience in order for our souls to evolve in the way that they're meant to. And each one of our souls is at a different place in its evolution. Therefore, we're not all going to end up with an incredible amount of money in this life, right? But that doesn't mean that you failed. Success is when you're able to recognize that even the small shifts in your internal world, your ability to navigate this life, is just as meaningful as the external gains. For some of you, that will reflect in attaining these crazy things in life. And you're like, oh my gosh, how did I get so lucky in this life? Or I worked so hard for this. Thank God it paid off. And that's beautiful. But for those of you who are on a different path or at a different stage in your journey, it does not mean you're failing at all. You're still successful every single time that you wake up and choose to be the best version of yourself. You're still successful every single time that you share love with your family and your friends and your community. You're still successful every time you take care of yourself and you honor yourself. You take care of your mind, body, and spirit. Success is not just about, I know for me, before my spiritual awakening, and I've talked about this in previous episodes, but I'm going to get into it a little bit again, where before my spiritual awakening, I was really rooted in my identity to my career. And I was very successful in my career. And honestly, before my awakening, I didn't recognize that I wasn't successful internally. I knew I didn't feel good internally, but I thought that's just how life. I really didn't understand that life was supposed to, or even available to, feel peaceful, balanced, calm, centered, and grounded. I thought life just moved really fast. You rolled with the punches and you had your ups and downs and you used what you could to get by. And if you had anxiety, you took a pill for it. And if you did, like that was just kind of the baseline of what I was operating on. But underneath it, I did realize, especially when I was using substances, that I shouldn't have to use substances to feel good. And that's when my perspective started to shift. So if you're looking at your life and maybe you feel successful, but empty inside, like you have all these things, but it still doesn't feel good inside of you. Or maybe you don't have these things and you feel like those things would make you feel, fulfilled inside. Really take a look at where you're outsourcing your peace to. Do you have vices that you constantly use to numb yourself? Because no matter how much money you have or how much success you have, you will always turn to those vices when you're stressed. I have to stop the podcast for a second. As you guys know, this is the first episode of the second season, and I swear to you guys, I swear on everything in my life, the only time I see cool birds and animals is when I am working. So this is obviously the first time during a podcast that I've seen something, but I only see cool birds or animals when I'm doing readings, always. The other night, it was a coyote walked right in front of my window as I was doing a mediumship reading. I mean, I sit in my office all day and all night, all day doing emails, doing stuff for social media, and I don't see anything. And then I start to do a reading and they pop in, like your loved ones send them over, and or my loved ones send them over, I guess, because this is our first podcast episode back in season 2. And lo and behold, a hummingbird just came to the window. It's the second hummingbird I've seen all year. I saw one on Mother's Day, and then I haven't seen one since. And of course, I'm doing the podcast, and guess what comes to the window? So confirmation that this conversation is meant to be had and that you are meant to be listening, especially if the hummingbird is your sign. Take this as a sign from your past loved ones and from God or the universe that you are guided, protected, loved, and led always, and that success comes from within. Where was I? So we really want to take note of what we are doing to outsource our peace, because no matter what we achieve or attain in this life, we're going to have stress. You might attain everything and then you get sick. And what do you do when you get sick? Do you fall into old patterns? Do you fall into old mentalities? You can achieve, you can manifest these things in your life, but if you haven't done the internal work to provide peace and support and love within your soul that you embody, you're not going to be able to navigate those things in a healthy way. And you're going to end up feeling exactly as you did or worse before you've had all the things. And that's where this new age manifest culture, I tend to be very cautious with. I think that, shifting our energetic vibration into a receiving mode is a beautiful thing, but only doing manifesting techniques in order to attain certain physical things in our material world, I don't think is healthy. I think that God or the universe provides us with soul inclinations, soul pushes into different places and spaces and, different areas in life in order to experience what we're meant to experience. Now, how much we listen to that is usually based on our traumas and wounds and conditionings and programmings and how much we fear what's going to happen or how much confidence we have or how much self-worth we have. And so those things are self-limiting, and therefore like abundance embodiment practices can absolutely help you work through those aspects of yourself that might be difficult to ascend from. But to just achieve something through visualizing it is not, it's not true success to me, right? You could say, are you a successful manifester? Yeah, but can you hold the manifestation? Can you really receive it? A lot of times somebody will be like, I can manifest anything. I can manifest $100. I can manifest this. I can manifest that. Do they keep that money? Do they feel really good about that money? Or do they just want more? Do they seek more? Or do they seek elsewhere? They have to do the next thing. True manifestation or true embodiment of abundance, true embodiment of our soul's light leads us into the places we're meant to be led, where our self-confidence, our worth, our light is shining bright. And we feel fulfilled just being in that space before we've received the round of applause, if we're a speaker, before we've received the promotion at work. We are just fulfilled and happy and aligned and at peace. Now, we're human. Is every single day going to look like this? No, but a lot of days can look like this. And even in a day where something happens that disrupts this within you, you can absolutely get back to a place where you have peace and alignment. And I found that's what's happened in my own life, where I still have days that are difficult for sure, even multiple days in a row, but I still have glimmers in those days of peace, alignment, support, even from God or the universe and my loved ones and my angels and my guides. So it's not about becoming perfect, and it's not about attaining all these things and embodying your light and doing all right. It's about being able to stay grounded, at peace, aligned, and light filled through everything that comes your way, no matter how much you have or don't have. And so if you don't have a lot right now, rather than just manifest the money, manifest or come into alignment with your truth, with your light. Get in touch with who you are, what you love to do. Get in touch with nature in the beautiful earth that we live on. Rather than doom scroll, rather than turn to the glass of wine, do some journaling, like things that are going to remind you of your true soul, your true light within. And of course, I'm going to promote shadow work and inner child healing and all of those things to help you get into that place too. But just day to day, it's about recognizing that successes comes within, and you can have glimmers of success every single day. If you're in a bad mood, but you get yourself out of it by getting into nature, relaxing, letting go, playing with your kids outside, that's success. And feeling grateful for that success and honoring that success is going to give you the foundation or the platform to build upon. That will never leave you. You can connect to it again to build upon it, even if you have a hard time in between them. And you get to this place where your energetic vibration is being raised so much that you are attracting more positive experiences into your life. You're aligned to what's meant for you instead of the difficult experiences that you're navigating through all the time. And still, even on the hard days, even when you have more money or more power, more recognition or whatever it is, you're able to move through that in a beautiful way. So I hope this helps you as you move forward in your life in navigating what success feels like and looks like to you. And I'll see you in the next episode.